Hello everyone, Burb here. Aquarius Cup's registration day is today, and that means that I like to look forward towards the next CM, so let's talk about a Pisces Cup. This will be the overview video. If you're wondering why this is out so early, I have an anti-frustration plan. My suggestion is if you have 3 passable Umas on registration day, let's stop making Umas for Aquarius Cup, start making Umas for the next CM, which is Pisces Cup. If you don't, I do have a procrastinator's guide. It's probably popping up in the top right corner. Pick 2 or 3 Umas from that list of 5 Umas. They should take you less than a day to build. If you don't have any of the Umas on that list, you can build a Haru Urara and just put some late surger skills on her, run her in the late surger position. She sometimes will just hit and will just win. The only thing is that this CM is Trackblazer releases on the 12th, so the Umas that we make now till the 12th will probably not be good enough as aces to be competing against Umas that are in the Trackblazer scenario. This is a good thing because that means our Aquarius Cup Umas are not going to be affected by it. However, I am trusting you all that if you follow the anti-frustration plan, this is the one time where I will give you free reign to try and high roll. If you are the type of person who doesn't get frustrated when you don't hit an RNG. If you're like me, let's just make some parents and move on. Let's just go to the right foot on Trackblazer and just enjoy the game, take a break, try some random things, maybe run some characters we don't normally run, maybe watch a story or two, and just enjoy the game for the next 10 days as we watch our Aquarius Cup Umas go. So, one more disclaimer. I have not played Trackblazer. I'm specifically not a JP player. I do not play on that server because I like to keep myself a little bit blind, but I do understand sort of the mechanics of the Trackblazer. A lot of this is in the realm of theory. A lot of this is just what I pieced together, what I think will be good moving on to the next CM. If there are major mistakes, I will correct them, and I possibly may remake this video completely if there is something that is so egregious that I need to do so. So take it with a grain of salt, but I do believe I've tried my best in keeping things as accurate as possible. So, as per usual, our standard cadence is today is going to be the overview video, and then I move into the Pace Chaser, Late Surger, End Closer, Front Runner guide. So the roll guides will be after this overview video. They will take a few days apiece to make. The overview video specifically will talk about the track, the stat requirements with justifications, as well as standard deck building strategies, and just the general observations I've made so far. This is just sort of to get your feet wet and to start thinking about how we're going to build our characters that we like later. The role guides in specifically will actually go through the characters to build, the skills to buy on those characters, on those specific roles rather, as well as where to find them on the cards. So if you're looking for that, just wait a couple days, we will get there. All right, so today, overview video, let's begin. So some housekeeping. Pisces Cup is on the Hanshin 3200 meter turf track. It is a long track, right-handed, heavy spring rain. So your green skills are right here, along with the standard front runner green skills if you like that. Honestly, this CM is all about stamina. So for stats, I did all the math for the different amount of recoveries you need. The base stamina requirement is nearly 1700. Depending on your style, it could be about 1720 for paces, all the way down to 1585 for late surgers. Notably, in Make a New Track, according to the reference guide, stamina will be capped at 1900, so you can technically go all the way up to 1700 and you could get 0 recoveries. I do not suggest that, even though we will be getting more stats, because on long tracks your recoveries are actually pretty efficient. Take these ones. These are the base values. If you're rushed, you get a plus 70 stamina debuff, and if you are debuffed by a character, it ends up being about 75 stamina. So if you really think about it, if you have 1900 stamina as a pace chaser, you technically will have every amount of stamina you need. However, I am suggesting 2 gold recoveries because I think that is the break-even point for it. I've gone through a bunch of math. So the problem with 2 gold recoveries is that at 600 wit, which is what about you will probably get, you have an 85% skill proc rate, which means that if you need 2 gold recoveries to proc, you will have a 72% chance of success, which means 27% of the time only 1 will proc, and I think it's like about 4% of the time 0 will proc, but that's just considered unlucky, essentially. So 72% of the time you will be good, but that 27% of the time is very frustrating. At 900 wit, 90% skill proc, this is where diminishing returns really happen. It's down to 19%. So 600 wit is kind of the thing to aim for because that is where the diminishing returns start to come off on 2 skill procs. To counteract this, there is a downhill. We are not really concerned about survival in this one, which is kind of different for a lot of CMs because the entire late race is practically in a downhill. That's going to be a different thing of frustration to do, but essentially you need to hit your spurt more than you need to hit survival. You will hit survival like almost every time. It's just whether or not your Uma decides to delay its spurt or even figures it out, because this is going to be a long CM, so your wit's going to be lower. There's a lot of math here. I will make a dedicated downhill video, but the big thing is that essentially your expected value at 600 wit is roughly 52% chance in downhill. So out of the 400 meters worth of downhill, you will roughly be in downhill mode on average 210 meters at about 0.7 stamina per meter saved. So in downhill mode, you conserve about 60% of your stamina. So you will save about 147 stamina from this downhill to counteract usually rushed and or a debuff. But you can't count on it, because if you get unlucky, you don't save any stamina. If you get really lucky, you get 280 stamina. So if you count on having 147 stamina left, half the time you're going to get less than 147 stamina. And even if you do like 70 less stamina, it's like 3/4 of the time you're fine, but you're gambling on this percent and then you're gambling on this percent. So you're adding another like 0.7 to this one, and it jumps up to like 40%. So I wouldn't count on it. I would just use it as a bonus. So what you can do is you can counteract the rushed debuff that you normally would do, and you just say that, hey, in the times I'm rushed or debuffed, hopefully the downhill is going to save me. And that way you can balance the amount of recoveries with the amount of speed skills. Obviously, if you're able to get more recoveries without sacrificing your speed and acceleration skills, do so. But I tentatively and with great caution am actually suggesting 1150 speed, 1000 stamina base minimum, with a balance of power and wit with some 500 guts, with 2 gold recoveries. The reason why this is probably lower than a lot of people say is because of this downhill. But again, the first stat that you should increase past the minimums, these are minimum stats, should be stamina up probably 100 to 150. And the reason is that it just gives you more rush protection and more debuff protection. I have tested this both in the stamina calculator, but also the awful pace rushed. I like to call it the awful pace rush test, where I put a pace chaser on awful while it's rushed, and it still has roughly a 92% spurt rate, with the downhill pretty much saving it. So the times that they are rushed generally will be saved by the downhill. If you're a front runner, you already know what you're doing. You're signing up for more wit than normal, so I suggest a little bit higher wit and make a new track. The actual stats should be a little easier to come by. This also doesn't have any stat threshold, so we can build kind of how we like. So let's talk about the track. This is a really weird track. This track is an outer to inner, which means we go around the loop on the outer, and then we come around on the inner to the finish line. Luckily, Game Tora is nice enough to split these up. So for the early race, the outer track starts on a straight and goes into a corner. This first corner is far enough forward where you don't have to worry about it for corner recovery or anything, and BOFA was changed to not proc really, really early, so essentially pretty much all recoveries work. That's really the only thing. In the mid-race, there is a downhill. It is before the position keep, so backliners is not as useful, but if you do have high wit, your downhill mode is right here. This is what saves you, conserves you stamina, and especially front runners who don't have to deal with pace down mode, wit actually really helps you on these 400 meters, but then you will be hit with a minor uphill that kind of cancels it out. So this uphill, which is at the start of the position keep, will basically give people with more power a little bit of a boost in the mid race. It's not really that much. It's not as much as other CMs, but we will be coming back to this uphill because we will see this again, because we do 2 laps in this. All right, so we go around the rest of the mid-race, and honestly, this track is a lot simpler than it looks because, hey, the mid-race is just a bunch of corners and straights. The spurt is very troublesome because the spurt happens early on the straightaway. There is about a 4 to 5 second interval between the spurt and the actual corner, which means your standard angling and scheming and your Let's Pump Some Iron, it's closer to 2 to 3 seconds. I apologize. Your standard corner accelerations don't work very well. They can work as backups, but they're not good alone. And this is essentially makes this a very clear meta of end closers and front runners. And you may say, whoa, end closers are end closers with straightaway spurt, but front runners, that's a little weird. We will get to that, but there is a new character that has an inheritable ultimate for front runners. The corner, like I said, is a little bit too late to really be effective, but it is there as a backup. And then we have a downhill for the entirety of the late race. And this is going to be very frustrating for some because, again, downhill mode is determined by your wit. So wit is very important for late race speed. But when you exit it, it's just a flat 20%. So even if you get into downhill mode using your wit, and yes, it increases the expected value, and if I do a downhill video, I'll go through it by having more wit, you can't control when you get knocked out of it. So there's going to be a lot of weird things happening in the late race because we will be pretty much at max speed by this corner. That's going to cause just positions to change back and forth because of the bonus speed from the downhill. The final corner happens further enough away that final corner skills, that our speed skills will not have to worry about getting eaten up by acceleration. And then, of course, the final bit, we redo that uphill that we saw in the mid-race. So power is actually just as important because at the very end of the race, you will have to go through a pretty steep uphill, honestly. And your at max speed is going to be hit if you don't have enough power. Okay, that is the track. It looks kind of complicated. I'm going to have to go all the way back for it because it has this graphic, but really, only thing you really care about is the spurt, and it's just a very, very long mid-race. All right, inherits. The new character I was talking about is, of course, Citizen Black. Citizen Black has her new ultimate that essentially, on the backstretch, which is what this track specifically has, she can increase her acceleration, and it is inheritable. So on this backstretch in the late race, this little bit of straight causes her to essentially have an ultimate on perfect timing. So her ultimate is perfect timing. I believe it's a 0.3 excel, which goes down to a 0.1 excel, but it is plenty to make front runners very, very good in this CM. So you can run Citizen Black on her own. You can inherit it on a front runner. As for front runners, after that, you just generally want to have your late race speed. So Lights of Vaudeville, I think, is good. The new TM Upper O, I believe, works as well. 400 meters should be plenty. And then after that, you just get your pass protection skills as luxuries if you want it, or you can go and high roll with Iowa Scarlet if you want as well. It's sort of the same thing as other tracks where you just hope it procs late and you're in the second to first position as well. For pace chasers, we have a problem. There is no primary acceleration skill. Your best bet is to either try to lucky pace or high roll wits in the mid race with practically no downhill after the position keep with Citizen Black, or try to late proc a Tamamo cross alt. Those are really your two options for inherits. You mostly will be going off of either Nimble Navigator White or Head On. It's not looking very good for us pace chaser late surge remains, to be honest. And then after that, your late race speed skills are kind of the best thing you got. All right, gamblers, end closers. You have straightaway spurt. That is your primary acceleration. I'm going out on a limb and saying the best thing you can do in lates and ends is get your late race speed up because we got a lot of ground to make up against these front runners. Again, we can high roll with Tamamo Cross just like the other ones in the 7th and 6th position. But I think, honestly, just getting a Rudolph alt on your character or getting an Oguri Cap alt on your character may give you enough to get back into the pack. End closers, you have straightaway spurt for your Excel. Late surgers, we have our hopes and dreams and nothing else. So we are kind of struggling with on your left. But otherwise, standard Brian works. You get Measure Orion and Measure Dover kind of work as backups, specifically for late surgers because we just have such bad options that if on your left procs late, maybe if we're in the right position, these will help us enough to give a little bit. It's kind of cope, but it's a backup if on your left procs really late. I would not suggest these on end closes because you have straightaway spurt, and by the time you hit that corner, you will be very close to max speed anyways. So otherwise, TM Opera O, other standard fronts, but honestly, get your late race speed skills up. That's the best you can do. I'm saying that these don't work. Obviously, Taiki Shuttle and Marzensky don't work because the final corner is too late. I have an asterisk next to Sand Sky because technically it has the same timing as Dober Ryan. But I have a feeling that, like, if you're running Citizen Black as your primary acceleration, if it hits, it's good enough. You're at max speed by the time the corner hits. I don't think you need this because in the situations where you proc Citizen Black, you're proccing Saiyan Sky. And in the situations where you're not proccing Kidison Black, you're not proccing Saiyan Sky. So it doesn't really add anything new. That's why I'm putting it on the do not recommend tier, even though technically Simulator says it works, but it really doesn't, in my opinion. Someone can correct me on that. I am not a frontrunner main. I've done one frontrunner video in my entire YouTube history, so that's just what I have seen in Simulator. Deck building strategies, again, haven't played Mant yet, but I think that generally you are going to want to really high roll into 2 specific trainings. Usually that will be speed and wit, but there is a necessity for some sort of stamina because the stamina requirements are so high and you need to source your actual gold recoveries. So here's some more higher end builds with a lot of cards, just generally 3 speed, 2 wit, hit your 50 to 60% race bonus, and generally supplement with as much stamina sparks as required and power sparks as you can manage. For more free-to-play friendly builds, if you have Kidison, you can run Kidison with the new Tosin Jordan for 1 recovery and then borrow a Super Creek for the 2nd recovery. And then just go from there, get some 3-speed 2-wit or 2-speed 3-wit, go from there. If you have absolutely nothing in the build, I almost would suggest trying to either get just the Tosin Jordan card for the stamina. If you don't have any sort of gold recoveries on any cards, you have to pretty much borrow Super Creek at this point. But try to hit this 50 to 60% race bonus with like a nice Nature Wit or a Fuku or a Narita Top Road, and then just fill in your speed cards and just sacrifice some wit. Wit is still the least important stat that is not guts, so the least important of the main 4 in my opinion, because you need to hit your power requirements, you need to hit your speed requirements, you need to hit your stamina requirements in particular. So wit is still a luxury skill on everyone except frontrunners. I do think that there will be a power build that surfaces. This may be a little bit weird to say now, but I just am thinking about it, and it's like there's no reason why power build shouldn't work, because you are going all in on speed and all in on power instead of all in on speed and all in on wit. And I think this build will require some stamina sparks and then some wit sparks to supplement the fact that you don't only have 1 wit card. Again, I haven't played Mant yet. This may be complete cope, but I just have a feeling that the people who want to run Ayabe for Daring Strike, especially on end closers, will want to run a 2nd power card so that their power taps are very good and give you a lot of stamina. So this or Rice Shower or something along the lines that will give you stamina in addition to your power on those big summer taps should work just fine. Again, if you don't have the premier cards, you can still run the new Tosin Jordan card and then just get some race bonus somewhere else using Agnes Tachyon and Hishi Amazon and any of the powers that have high race bonus, even the free, what's it called? She's here. Marvelous Sunday Power card will give you 15% as well. So there's a lot of options. Guts maxing. I don't really know how guts maxing works, honestly. I just put some guts and some wit cards on the screen. I'm pretty sure you actually run a singular speed card, but I don't really think it works very well because I don't think you hit the stamina requirements. And if you do this, I think you really, really, really need some stamina sparks. But I don't think it works for this long CM. I think it's something that pops up more towards the medium CMs that come after it, because you can actually just with sparks and standard stuff with the guts get you enough to go there. But guts from 1200 to 400 only gives you about 200-ish, 250-ish stamina. So it's not really going to counteract the fact you still need, 1400. Maybe there's a build out there that has 3 gold recoveries built in, but I don't think there's any wit cards that have stamina gold recoveries in it. So I don't think guts maxing will be too frequent right now. Rico, obviously Rico SSR is usable at 10% race bonus. I don't like Rico R at 5% race bonus because I will make a video on this eventually, but Rico is a card that is it's basically Scenario Link is half of her value and the other half is the combination of the mood ups and the fact her chain events don't really fight against the other chain events. And if you're losing the Scenario Link, you're running a card that doesn't really give you many stats, especially even though it does give you some stamina. Just running a second stamina card, especially in a scenario where you're really trying to hit those massive taps during summer, you want either double stamina or double power or something like that to go through there. So I don't like Rico. I don't feel like theoretically our Rico is going to work very well Maybe you can run SSR Rico if you have our MLB for the 10% race bonus, but that is my initial thoughts on Rico in Make a New Track in general, but also this CM. Yeah, I just misordered these slides. Characters, there's a lot of characters you can run. This isn't even all of them, I'm pretty sure, but these are all the ones that you can build with D+, D+ in long. And the problem is, I think we're going to have with these characters that a certain one is going to make our life like really, really bad, and the other one's probably going to be Taishin that we find is going to hurt us a lot. So with all us Oshi players, we can play our characters, but we have a lot of work to do to make them very, very good to fight against Kidus in Black and to fight against Narita Taishin and fight against the end closers and front runners. Or we force them to end closer or front runner. I think those are our options. I'm going to grab a bit of water. Talking for a while is hard. All right, almost made it all the way through. So, checklist, the biggest thing, minimum stamina. You need to hit your minimum stamina, 2 gold recoveries with this particular stamina. Look at the stamina chart earlier if you are not going 2 gold recoveries. Hit your minimum stats, get your guaranteed accelerations for front runners and end closers, and then or hit your gamble accelerations for your late surgers and pace chasers. Then you get your mid-race to late-race speed skills. Grab more stamina first. Just grab more stamina. It'll make your consistency a lot better. And then if you're a late surger or a pace chaser, you want to grab power before wit because essentially this opens the window for our gambling accels to work better. So if we can lower the burden on our on your left or our nimble navigator, stuff like that, we increase our success chance. The end closers and the front runners, because they have their guaranteed accelerations, the wit is going to be better because you're going to get into downhill mode more in the late race, as well as just your general positioning and skill proc rate. That's more important than just the additional acceleration because everything is additive, and late surgers and pace chasers, we don't really have the best acceleration, so we can compensate by getting really, really high power. So that is my suggestions. As for an observation, like I said, there is a very clear meta in this one. Front and end closers will generally be much more consistent and possibly better than late surger and pace chasers, but I think that people are going to have a lot of problems with stamina requirements this CM. So I think if you hit your stamina requirements over everything else, you will have a lot more success than you think because I think characters are going to be dying. I never really played debuffers before. I'm not sure how hard it is to not just pump your stamina up like 300-400 above the limits. I'm not sure that's the right thing to do because I don't know how well we are going to be able to get stats in Track Blazer. But there is possibly an option where you run something like a Manhattan Cafe with with the white debuff on her gold recovery. There is possibly the last chance of doing debuffs on long, but I'm not sure how effective it will be. Swinging Maestro is better than BOFA. Straights still have the 2 out of 3 chance. The reason being is that if they proc on the final straight, they don't affect your spurt chance still. So if you're able to get Swinging Maestro over BOFA, both are good. They both are just fine, but Swinging Maestro will proc 100% of the time in the spot where you want it. BOFA has the chance to procking on the final straight, which is a little bit tough. Remember the anti-frustration plan as you're going through it, so start with your meta Uma, that will be Kidus in Black, or any front or end closer, make them possible, and then make your Oshi, and then finally build Umas that look towards the future, which is Kidus in Black. Any sort of if you're running late surgers or end closers, your late race speed skill ones, or you can even run like a Ryan over Seiyun for future CMs because we're going to need those in the medium CMs, and then repeat 2 and 3 over and over again, and occasionally go back to your meta Uma if it's not a character you particularly enjoy. All right, so this has been the overview. I've done my best in keeping this as accurate as possible. I probably made some mistakes. There will be an addendum down below to check for that, but up next will probably be the Pace Chaser guide. It'll be some sort of role guide. It'll take me a couple of days, so we'll go through the Pace Chasers, the late surgers, the end closers, the front runners, and then when the CM completes, I do like to go and just talk about the CM and my experience with it, so please look forward to that. Good luck with your initial Aquarius Cup, and when Make a New Track releases, good luck in your ace building. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Take care, everyone. We're about.